Hi guys. Okay, so we will start by correcting the last piece of homework I gave you, which was this. We had finished off kind of how to conduct a habitat study, and that's pretty much where we were. Okay, so this was the last piece of homework. I think it was nice and straightforward. Hopefully you didn't find it too bad. So calculate the percentage for each plant. So the clover popped up 1, 2, 3 times out of 10. So that's 30%. And the buttercup 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times out of 10. So that is 60%. So that's part A. If one more quadrat was placed at random, how likely would it be to contain clover? So you would have to assume that the probability would continue. So the probability of the next one containing clover, there'd be a 30% chance of the next quadrat containing clover and not containing buttercups. So there's a 60% chance it will contain buttercups, which means there would be a 40% chance of no buttercups. Yeah? And that is pretty much it. Okay, so we'd gone through the entire habitat study, which is all of that. So I'm moving on here. I just want to do adaptions and competition today. So adaptions, what are they? Okay, I have a good few kind of notes here from different sources. So there's a little bit of repetition in the notes, but it just gives, I don't know, different views, maybe. Views is probably the wrong word. Okay. So in order to survive, living things must adapt to their environment. Okay, so what is an adaptation? It is a structure or habit that helps an organism to survive within its habitat or its community. Okay, so things that we now take for granted, something like the fact that fish have gills, that is an adaptation to allow them to take in oxygen underwater. They have fins, that's an adaptation so that they can swim efficiently and effectively. Okay, so adaptation kind of links with that like survival of the fittest type of thing. So the more adapted or adaptable a plant or an animal is to its environment, the more likely it is to live longer, hence more likely it is to reproduce, and then it can pass on its genes and its characteristics. Also, it passes on those adaptations. Okay, so the plants and animals that are capable of making the adaptations live longer, can reproduce, and then those adaptations are reproduced in their offspring. So I think it kind of says it there. So it allows the organism to live longer. They will continue to breed, and the adaptation will be passed on. And it's essentially this is the whole process of evolution by natural selection, so that the animals and plants that are capable of making the adaptations adapt better to the environment, live longer, breed more, reproduce more, and then those adaptations are passed on, and ultimately what you get is evolution. You get an improvement in the species over time. Okay, so there's a load of examples there. I'm not going to read through all of them. The primrose is one you might have heard of before. So it's an adaptation of primroses that they produce their flowers really early in spring. So plants, one of the things they compete for is light. And obviously a primrose would struggle to compete for light against an oak tree, for example, the primrose is going to lose that all day long. So they produce their flowers much earlier than a lot of the other plants, and that is an adaptation so that they can live longer. The grasses one is interesting as well. Grass grows from the base. Most plants grow from their tip, but grasses don't. They grow from the base, and that is an adaptation because grass is eaten by animals. So at least when the animal eats, it will eat the top of the plant, and the plant continues to grow from the bottom. So it makes it more efficient at growing, given it's been eaten a lot. A lot of adaptations, the caterpillars there have a similar colour to the plants they feed on, allows them to be well camouflaged. There's a lot of that in nature, an awful lot of animals that have colour adaptations so that they can blend in with their environment, and it makes them, less likely to be eaten by a predator. Okay, so this one here, again, this is just notes from a different section. There's nothing here. There's nothing new here. Another interesting one there is the nettles one. I actually heard that on the radio the other day, that the stings on nettles are an adaptation as well, and it's to stop them being eaten. So nettles grow kind of like right at the edge of like most fields. You'll find nettles kind of right in the corner, and it'd be perfect for cattle or sheep or whatever to graze on them. And the nettles obviously do not want to be cattle food, so they have adapted and created these nettles, which if somebody does try to eat them, they will hurt themselves, and as a result then they will stop eating them. So it is an adaptation mechanism so that nettles survive and live longer. They have the primrose as an example there again. They're talking about colour camouflage, like I said, a lot. You'll see this a lot in nature. They're talking about fox, whereas obviously up above they were talking about the caterpillar and snails. So the shell is for protection, to stop them being eaten by birds. And I spoke about the gills and the fins. Frogs have webbed feet. Okay, so just different examples of adaptations. I'm just trying to see if there's anything new here. The better adapted an organism is to its habitat, the more successful it will be when competing for resources such as food and mate. And that's where that natural selection comes in. So the whole survival of the fittest. Okay, whichever plant or animal is the most well adapted will do the best in terms of competition for resources, and as a result will live longer, pass on those adaptations, and then you're getting whatever it is that made that first plant or animal successful being passed on, being reproduced. And ultimately it'll strengthen the species, whatever it happens to be. This increases the organism's chance of survival, and so increases the chance of reproducing. Okay, so there's loads of examples there of different adaptations that have been made in plants and animals. Why do hedgehogs have spines? Why do hawks have good eyesight? How come rabbits can run fast? Why do foxes have large ears? On the plant side, dandelions have long, deep roots. Seaweed is very flexible. Some seaweeds have air bladders. So there's lots of different adaptations there, and the research question here is why. Okay, I'm not going to make you do this, but some of them are interesting. Like some of the ones up above, I had kind of looked into in a bit more detail. I think I probably knew the primroses one. I didn't know about grass growing from the root, which is very interesting and obviously a really impressive adaptation. So there's a couple there if you want to look into any of them. So the next thing here is competition. Okay, so we said previously that the animals or plants that are most adapted or are most well adapted to their habitat will do the best when it comes to competing for resources. Okay, so competition is literally what it sounds like. It is competition for resources. Where am I? So competition takes place when two or more organisms require something that is in scarce supply. Okay, you need to know the difference here. So, oh no, sorry, that color will not work. Animals compete for space, food, water, and mates or partners. Um, some of those, some of that competition will be interspecies, so it won't be the same animal fighting, and some of them, like particularly the one for mates, that will be one, like, so two males from one species fighting over a female. You're not going to get I don't know, a fox and a bird fighting over a female fox. Okay, so some of those, like, you do have competition over, if there's a watering hole, you will have competition between, maybe zebras and buffalo, there'll be competition there. So that would be between different species, but competition for partners is normally within the one species. And then plants. So plants compete for light, space, water, and then soil minerals. So basically the things that they need to survive, in order to photosynthesize, plants need water and they need light. To spread their roots, they need space. And to grow healthy and strong and reproduce, they need the minerals from the soil. So if they're in the shade of a massive oak tree, they're going to be in serious competition for space, light, water, and minerals, because the oak tree is so much bigger, it's going to win. Now, there are different plants who literally grow there, and they're the conditions they like. So it just depends on the plant. And again, this is back to adaptation. Okay, so types of competition. So grasses compete with each other for light and space. Foxes compete with each other for food. So I've talked through some of these. Grasses and dandelions compete with each other for light. Robins and blackbirds compete with each other for food. Okay, so this is kind of the competition occurs between different types of plants and animals. So you can have the competition between the same plant or animal, or between different plants and animals, depending on what they're competing for. Again, different set of notes. So competition occurs when organisms struggle for something, food, space, which is in short supply. Seedlings crowded together will compete with each other for space, resulting in smaller plants. A thrush and a robin may compete with each other for berries and insects, but they can avoid direct competition by hunting and nesting in different areas. So this is where you have a huge problem with, like, if a load of trees are cut down. So where the thrush was happy in one tree and the robin was happy in the other tree, and there was no problem, there was no competition for space, all of a sudden you cut down one of those trees, and the robin wants to go over and use the same tree that the thrush has. And now there's a problem. Now you've got competition. Okay? So, again, this is all the same thing. Competing for resources. So it goes through here. What do animals compete for? So I've gone through that already. Members of different species will not compete for mates. So that does not happen in nature. Competitions between plants, obviously, I mean, I'm sure you've in your time seen, like, nature documentaries, like the competition for mates, or water or food, and they're quite fierce when you see it between two, like, amazing majestic animals in the wild. And it's not quite as impressive when it's between, a primrose and an oak tree, but it is happening. They're competing for light, water, minerals, and space. I'm just going to go over here for a second. There's a couple of nice little questions in here. So I suppose try and answer them if you can. Like, pause it before I go on to the answer. Come on. Okay. This is kind of where I'm getting some of the notes from. They're nice little... Oh. No. Okay, so this is competition. This one. Oh no, not this one. Sorry. This one. Okay, so food. So who competes? Which group competes for food? So that would just be animals, I think. Yeah, mates would definitely be animals. Light is plants. Soil minerals is definitely plants. They both need water. And space, they both need space. Okay? So, will I check on memory? Yeah. Okay, so just a nice little, just to make sure you know what they're competing for, I suppose. And then I thought this one was nice. So competition is the struggle between organisms for and you fill in for A. So is it habitats or resources? I think it's resources. Animals compete for food, water, something, and territory. So it's mates or partners. Plants compete for minerals, water, something, and space. Oh, so light or glucose. It's going to be light. Competition is a driving force behind photosynthesis, reproduction, or natural selection. So it is natural selection. So like survival of the fittest. So the most adapted animal in that habitat will do the best when it comes to competition, and that idea drives, because then that animal lives longer, breeds more, and breeds those adaptations, those successful adaptations, into its offspring. Individuals and species that are something competitive are at risk of becoming. Okay, so individual species that are less competitive are at risk of becoming extinct. Check. Yay. Okay, so hopefully you got them right too. Yeah, so that's it. So just take down the notes, please, on adaptation and then competition. Definitely have a couple, maybe 2 examples of animals adapting to an environment or a habitat, and 2 examples of plants adapting to a habitat. Okay, hopefully it was clear from the little questions there. You must know, what do plants compete for? What do animals compete for? Okay, that's going to be really important. And then the whole idea of competition being the kind of driving force behind natural selection is very important. So no actual homework, just take down your notes, please. All right. Okay, talk soon, guys.